If you're new to investing, or you just like to keep things simple as I do, then investing using just one fund is an incredibly attractive approach. So in this video, I'll look at how you can do just that using two sets of funds. One of them are the Vanguard LifeStrategy funds, and the others are the HSBC Global Strategy portfolios. So we'll look at the similarities between those two fund families, but also their differences. And at the end, I'll give you my possibly surprising opinion about what might be the best approach. This video is sponsored by Trading 212, a UK commission-free investment platform. So why would you ever just have one fund for all of your investments? I think simplicity is an undervalued thing in investing. If you do keep things simple, it often doesn't sacrifice return, but it does make your portfolio easier to understand and manage. So by keeping it down to just one fund, there's just one moving part. That's all you have to keep track of. And if you have to hand over the reins to somebody else, then it's very simple to explain what's going on. However, you don't have to sacrifice diversification, which would have been the case, say, 30 years ago, where you had to buy multiple stocks, maybe multiple bonds, in order to build a diversified portfolio. One fund can be globally diversified using one of these LifeStrategy funds or HSBC portfolio funds, for example. These are diversified across country, sector, asset type, so both stocks and bonds, and that's a great way of managing risk in your portfolio. Furthermore, if you were managing it yourself using multiple stocks, multiple bonds, then you'd have to rebalance the portfolio all the time. And that's because some assets increase in value, others fall in value. And in order to keep things in balance, you'd have to sell the things which rose and buy some more of the things which fell. And that brings things back into balance. With a multi-asset fund, this is all done for you. So now let's look at the similarities between these two families of multi-asset funds. The first thing is that both of them are risk graded. There isn't just one fund, it's an entire family of funds. And both families have 5 risk grades. In the case of LifeStrategy, I think it's easier to understand because the percentage that goes with the LifeStrategy fund's name is the percentage of stocks in the portfolio. So LifeStrategy 20 is 20% stocks and 80% bonds. And the accepted wisdom is that as you increase the amount of stocks in the portfolio, it becomes more risky, more volatile, and that increases your long-term return, but it also makes the portfolio more crashy. So the longer the period you're going to be investing for, the more risk you're able to take. And that's because stocks will have longer to recover if there is a crash. And usually they'll outperform over longer periods of time relative to bonds. So a shorter investment horizon means a lower risk profile fund that you'd go for. A longer investment horizon means more stocks and more risk, and of course more return usually. So that's true of both LifeStrategy and the HSBC Global Strategy portfolios. I think the HSBC funds are slightly harder to understand because they're risk graded. That's because their name represents what kind of risk you're taking. So the names go cautious, conservative, balanced, dynamic, and adventurous. Those don't match exactly with the 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 of LifeStrategy, but it's the same idea. The reason why I think that's a worse way of explaining what the funds do is that very few people understand volatility. And that's how the HSBC funds are managed. They have to remain within certain risk bands as measured by volatility, which is the typical annual percentage price move. Generally, more volatile funds tend to be more crashy, so more volatility means more risk and usually higher return. How do they achieve that greater volatility and return? In exactly the same way as LifeStrategy, by increasing the amount of equity in the portfolio. Another similarity between these two fund families is the way they're structured legally. In the US, they'd be called mutual funds. In the UK, we call them ICVCs. That's an investment company with variable capital. An equivalent name is OEIC or OIC, an open-ended investment company. But the idea here is that they expand or shrink according to whether money flows into or out of the fund. And they create more units of the fund if money flows in. They destroy units if money flows out. However, they're not traded on an exchange. Now, personally, I'm kind of ambivalent as to whether a fund I buy is an OIC or whether it's an ETF, an exchange-traded fund, which does trade on an exchange, because I don't trade intraday. With an ETF, you can buy now and then sell 1 minute later if markets are open, but I never do that. I usually hold on to funds for a very long period of time. OEICs usually just give you a price at the end of each day. ETFs are priced during the course of the day, minute by minute. And again, I don't really care about that either. What I would care about is whether the fund itself is available on my platform. Now, not all platforms offer OEICs. Some just offer ETFs. And because neither of these fund families is structured as an ETF, they may not be available on your platform. Also, on some platforms like Hargreaves Lansdown, it's much more expensive to own a fund rather than an ETF. So for example, if you've got £200,000 invested on Hargreaves Lansdown in a fund, the fee for that every year will be 0.45% per year. And that comes to a cost of £900 per year. Whereas if that fund was structured as an ETF, even if it gave you exactly the same exposure to markets, it would just be £45 a year to hold on Hargreaves Lansdown. So certainly the legal wrapper matters if it's going to affect the platform fee to hold that fund. Now on Vanguard, their own platform, there's no difference in holding fee according to whether it's an ETF or an OEIC. But if you are going to consider buying one of these funds, just make sure what the holding fee is for you. Another similarity is that you can have two flavors of each of these funds. So for example, LifeStrategy 60, the most popular fund from Vanguard in the LifeStrategy family, which is 60% stocks, 40% bonds, comes in two flavors. There's an accumulation version where all of the income from the individual holdings is reinvested back in the fund. So you don't get income payments paid into your brokerage account. Alternatively, you can go for an income version of LifeStrategy for each of the different funds, which does pay you an income. If you hold it in a general investment account, perhaps you want to make the tax reporting easier to split out capital gain and income. But whatever the reason, both income and accumulation versions of all of these funds are available. And as we said at the beginning of the video, both of these sets of funds are rebalanced regularly. We don't know the precise mechanics of that, but they're never allowed to get too far out of whack with their volatility bands for the HSBC family, or with the asset allocation between stocks and bonds for the LifeStrategy family. Now, I've been using Trading 212 for my fund portfolio for some time, and I love the fact that it's very low fee, but also very innovative. For example, they offer interest on all of your uninvested cash. Currently, the rate on sterling is 5%, on US dollars it's 5.1%, and on euros it's 4.2%. You can always check the latest rates by going to Trading 212. In order to enable that, just go to your account, tap on Earn Interest on Cash, then follow the instructions and hit the Enable button. And that way the money will be held in a qualifying money market fund and generate those rates of interest. Another innovative feature on Trading 212 is the ability to create pies. These are like portfolios within your portfolio, such that you can maintain a specific strategy and keep it separate from the other ones. Furthermore, you can do one-click rebalancing and you can fund those regularly. So it encourages regular saving, which is a great habit as an investor. There's also a social feature to pies so that you can publish your pies so that other people can see them. And in fact, there are 5 pies which I've published, which are available in the description below. Now, for viewers of PensionCraft, there's a special offer from Trading 212 where you can claim a free stock worth up to £100. Just create a new account on Trading 212, verify it, fund it, and then use the promo code, which is my name, Ramin, R-A-M-I-N. And there'll also be a link in the description below if you want to find out more. Now let's consider the differences between the two families. I think the biggest difference is the home bias for LifeStrategy funds. This is not an accident, it's deliberate. So LifeStrategy has a 25% allocation to UK equities. If we simply based it on the size of each market, the UK would only be about 4% or even less. So that's a 6-fold overweight for the UK. Now, if the UK performs particularly well, that's not a problem. However, over the latest decade, or even longer, the UK has massively underperformed relative to, say, the US. Since 2010, for example, you can see that the US's return has been over double that of the UK. There's also a very high weighting of UK bonds. They make up 35% of the bond allocation. But I have much fewer issues with that because yield is yield, and gilts are developed market government bonds. So diversification there I don't think is so much of an issue. maybe in the corporate bond market, but certainly not on the government bond market. And of course, it has the benefit of not having any currency risk, which is important for bonds, which tend to have a lower volatility. Now, why does Vanguard have this overweight? It seems out of character for them. They're the platform which always does what they think is best for you. Well, if I read from one of their brochures, it's kind of interesting to hear what they say. The inclusion of a home bias within the fund range stems from a historic preference for domestic investments among UK investors. In other words, it's easier to market it in the UK if you buy stuff which is familiar. And I find that quite disappointing, particularly given its impact on returns, as we'll see. Another difference between the two fund families is the way in which they're managed. HSBC is managed by active managers. So if we look at the term sheet from the second to highest risk profile fund, this is the Global Strategy Dynamic Portfolio, you can see that the fund manager has a name. At the moment it's Kate Morrissey, and her job is to tweak the portfolio within its risk bands to try and achieve the best outcome for their investors. Now that's assuming, of course, that she can tweak in the right way and that she can guess which markets are going to outperform. Of course, she'll never get that right, always, but she'll have a go. So very clearly here, they've got an actively managed portfolio. They don't deviate much based on what I've seen, but it is actively managed. Fortunately, it doesn't have a very high fee, which is true of many actively managed funds. But as it is actively managed, you've got to put your faith in the manager. So let's just hope Kate does a good job. Vanguard, on the other hand, has a very committee-based approach to its allocation. In fact, there seem to be 3 levels of committees which decide what goes into LifeStrategy and other funds. So we've got the Global Investment Committee, the Strategic Asset Allocation Committee, and we've also got the Investment Strategy Group, all producing inputs as to what goes into LifeStrategy. But there certainly are some changes. I've seen some myself. Unfortunately, the one change which I would like to see, which is taking away the UK bias, has not happened. So given these differences, what impact has it had on the historic risk and return of these two fund families? The usual way we'd look at that is to plot the risk of the fund as measured by its volatility. Remember, that's a typical percentage annual price move, and that's on the x-axis here, with risky on the right and low risk on the left. And then we have return on the y-axis, with low returns at the bottom and high returns at the top. Now notice what happens as we dial up the risk from LifeStrategy 20 up to LifeStrategy 100. The volatility increases, we move from left to right on the graph, but we also move up on the graph because we get a higher return because we took that greater risk. So generally a higher stock allocation will outperform a lower stock allocation because stocks outperform bonds. An equivalent plot for the HSBC funds shows a very similar risk-return profile. Greater risk means greater long-term return. Notice, however, that these funds were launched in 2017 rather than 2011, so we have 6 years less data to compare. But if we do compare the two funds on one graph for the period where both were available since 2017, something very interesting emerges. If we draw those lines through the different risk-return profiles for the two sets of fund families, light blue here is LifeStrategy and yellow is HSBC Global Strategy funds. If we slice at a particular risk level, which I've done here on the graph, notice how generally the return for the HSBC funds is over 1% higher than it would be for LifeStrategy. Now it's impossible to know the specific reasons for that, but I suspect the UK bias for LifeStrategy has certainly been contributing to that drag on return. Simply having a higher allocation to the US would have created outperformance over this period. Perhaps some of that outperformance also came from the tilts which the fund manager had over the years. But certainly over this period since 2017, HSBC has generated more return for every unit of risk that you've taken with their funds relative to LifeStrategy. But I wouldn't read too much into that because the one thing I've learned over many years in finance is that there is no secret sauce. By which I mean long term, what you're going to earn is the average return of stocks and bonds. If you have more stocks in your portfolio, then over periods of decades, you'll almost certainly outperform a bond portfolio. So that's why the long-term returns are really important to know. For US stocks, the real total return, so this is adjusted for inflation with dividends reinvested, has been 6.4% since 1900. Whereas for bonds, the average return has been about 4.7% lower every year on average. So we could work out some kind of theoretical return that we should receive for LifeStrategy 20 up to 100. We just take a weighted average of those two returns. So LifeStrategy 100 would just earn the 6.4% on average we might expect. Of course, it won't be exactly that, it would be roughly that, assuming that the future resembles the past. LifeStrategy 20, on the other hand, would pay the penalty of having less risk and lower return with bonds. And that's exactly what we see. If we compare that over this pretty short period that Vanguard LifeStrategies existed since 2011, LifeStrategy 100 has pretty much matched that expectation, the theoretical expectation. LifeStrategy 20, on the other hand, has lagged well below it, probably because of the huge drawdown that we saw in bonds over the last couple of years, the worst drawdown for bonds ever. So before I talk about which option I think is best, let me just consider a third option. And this is to create your own version of these funds. Now, when I first talked about LifeStrategy in 2017 after I started this channel, LifeStrategy was really exciting because it was low fee, it was very simple, and it just did what most people needed, I thought, in order to achieve their financial goals. Plus, you didn't have all the headache of rebalancing or deciding on asset allocation yourself. However, things have changed a lot since then. For example, it's now really easy to rebalance your portfolio. On Trading 212, you can do it with just one click. So to demonstrate that, what I tried to do was to replicate LifeStrategy portfolios as closely as I could, but without the UK bias. And because it was Trading 212, I could publish these as pies. So I call these the asset mix portfolios, and it's labeled the same way as LifeStrategy, 20% equity, all the way up to 100%. Furthermore, if you hold these on Trading 212, there's no fee for their ISA at all. The fee is zero. Compare that with Vanguard, you have to pay 0.15% for their platform. It's capped at £375, but for Trading 212, the cap is zero. Furthermore, that mixture of funds is very low fee. It varies between 0.09% up to 0.1% for Asset Mix 100. So if you want to copy those pies, it's very easy to do that. There'll be links in the description of this video in case you want to try. But then if you want to tweak those weights and increase the weight for a particular region, it's very easy to do that. It's also very easy to fund the portfolios regularly, which is a good habit to save regularly. And as we said, rebalancing is just a matter of one click. So I think what's happened here is that the justification for using Vanguard, its low platform fee, its low fund fee, and the ease of rebalancing if it's done for you, all three of those reasons for using LifeStrategy, or alternatively something like the HSBC funds, has essentially gone away. Technology's moved on, and those funds haven't. So really, I think it's very easy nowadays to create your own global funds and to manage them yourself as well. It's not quite as simple as just owning one fund, but it's really not much more complex at all. Now, don't forget our offer from Trading 212. You can claim a free stock worth up to £100. To claim that, all you have to do is create a new account on Trading 212, fund it, verify it, and then use the promo code, which is my name, RAMIN, Roman. And, as always, thank you for listening.